Good afternoon, everybody, and welcome. My name is Tim Kachuriak, and I am the Chief Innovation and Optimization Officer for NextAfter. And I am very, very excited that you've made some time out of your busy day to join us for today's special webinar, 21 Elements of an Effective Donation Page. Now, we will spend some and a number of different key learnings from our research. But before we get started, let me start with a couple quick things. A video recording of today's broadcast will be made, and everybody who has signed up to attend the webinar, whether or not you have attended or not, will receive a link to that recording. And Nathan's been really good about getting those out in pretty fast time, Nathan, so probably later today we'll have that?
Yep.
Excellent, excellent. Also, there's a number of different experiments that we will be referencing during today's broadcast, and we will send you the links to every single one of those so you can study those in greater detail should you wish. And finally, we really, really want your questions. Sometimes we do these things, we're like, is anyone there? Is anyone paying attention? And so if you have questions, or if you have comments or ideas, whatever is on your mind, we really would love to hear from you. There's a way for you to submit your questions through the GoToWebinar interface, and we will be going through some of those at the end. And now, I am very excited to introduce today's speaker, Jon Powell. Dr. Jon Powell is the senior... He's actually not a doctor, but I think he is. He's our Senior Director of Research and Education at NextAfter. And Jon has a really special job here. So he has the opportunity to go through our library of 850 experiments on a daily basis. And his job is to research what we've been researching. And he's trying to call out what are the universal laws of fundraising that can be applied to almost any organization. In some cases, we have very definitive proof that this versus that will make an impactful difference in your donation experience, and sometimes we're not sure yet. But we have some indications that these are things at least you should be testing on your own donation pages. And a little kind of added factoid, Jon Powell is a fourth degree master in Taekwondo, black belt. And we were kind of looking around the office earlier today. I was like, could you karate chop that? And he's like, yes. And could you karate chop that? He's like, well, maybe, if you held it a certain way. So there's a number of things, if you came to visit us, I would be able to reference that Jon Powell could, in fact, karate chop. And with that out of the way, Jon, I'm going to turn the stage over to you. Jon?
Well, thank you very much, Tim. This is great. As you all know, my name is Jon, and today what I want to do is I want to help you guys learn basically the secrets to getting the greatest response on your donation pages. That is my goal, and this is how we're going to do it. And in order to get started, the first thing that we have to do before we can get to the 21 proven tactics that you're coming and looking for, right? Before you can even understand how to make those work, right? We need to understand the single greatest influencer for making your donation pages win or lose, because that feeds directly in to number 2, which is the 7 core strategies. My goal is that you're going to understand everything in so much that you're not going to be limited to these 21 things. You're actually going to have ideas for more. So let's get started with the first. To get here, we assembled all the available donation page tests from our database, right? So Tim talked about 850 plus experiments as of today. The result is we found over 300 plus experiments that fit that criteria. And we conducted a thorough analysis. For every single test, we went through it at least 3 times. And then for some, which really drew our attention, we've looked at it, analyzed it maybe at least 6 different times, all to help bring you really to this single influencer. And the best way for me to explain the influencer actually is with a bit of an illustration. So let me get your help. How would you fill in that word? Same person but different what? What is it that you'd say? So imagine this guy and this guy are the same people. Same person but different what? How would you fill that in?
Setting, John?
Setting. That's good.
That's good.
Maybe what? Scenario, situation, right? So that's how you're going to, you take a look at that, right? You've got one person, but you have different settings. Now imagine you've got a person, the same person, he's grown a little bit more hair now. He's got a doctor's appointment, right? He's going to the doctor's office. Now, what do you think he's going to expect when he goes to that doctor's office? He's on a mission, right? Well, he's expecting to go and see a doctor, but what would happen if he opened the door and he actually got a disco party, right? Now, I just kind of lifted that picture off, from, was it Dreams time? But to give them credit, but yeah, some people would actually stay, I think. I think they would stay. But some people would go. The point is that there would be a moment of hesitation where all of a sudden their mission was halted and they have to make a decision. Do I stay and party? Or do I go find what happened to my doctor? Right? It's a bit of an extreme example, but
But John, point of fact, that actually is what my doctor's office looks like. So for some of us, this would not be a real kind of rare situation.
Right.
So,
yeah. There's a value proposition, guys. Anybody wanting to start a disco doctor's office, please. You don't need any permission from me. You guys understand where I'm coming from, right? You look at these different situations, and they seem to have this different contexts. Let's apply that now. Let's get relevant. Let's apply that now to a donation page. Here we've got just a donation page template. It looks like. And I want you to think about a general donation page, maybe the one that you have. Everybody has a general donation page, and one that you might have on your site somewhere. Well, think about that. It's on the site, and it can be accessed from so many different places. But the one thing that's common is that you have to seek it out. And it's very rare that somebody can just immediately get right there from they might from a search engine, but I bet if you look at your incoming traffic sources on that page, you're going to see a lot of it is internal or coming from internal. They have to find it. They have to seek it out, right? So what does this context reveal to us about our visitor? A few things. One, they're more than likely seeking the page out when they come. They probably have a reason in mind to donate, right? And they want to be sure that what they have in mind doesn't conflict with what is on the page. This is a person who is on a mission, that has something in mind, and really, you kind of want to stay out of their way in some respect, right? Let's think of a different situation, though, because that's not every donation situation, right? So we've got another donation page. But what if it came from an email, right? And so this is a random picture of somebody's email inbox online. And your email is going to probably be somewhere over here or over here, right? Amidst everything else, right? Well, let's think about this again, right? We got to take them to the email, take them to the page. What is it about this context? What does this context reveal to us about our visitor? Share your thoughts really quick. What does this context reveal? I mean, does it tell you what can we assume, or what can we imply from this situation?
Well, I think one thing, John, is that they probably have an existing relationship with the organization. I mean, obviously they're on the email list, so they must have subscribed at some point in the past.
Right. Yeah. Exactly. That's a good point, right? So I mean, they have some kind of relationship from you. So maybe if they click on it, maybe they actually like getting email from you. Maybe they're at work, and maybe they're like just tired of work, and they're looking for a break, or they want to act on that. There's something that's there, but one thing is for certain is they're usually being interrupted. They're not necessarily going into their email box looking for an email from you unless they bought something, and that's not necessarily the case there. They're looking for some kind of receipt or something like that. In this case, it's no. I didn't sign up for an offer. I'm not looking for an email from you. I'm just browsing, and you're pulling me away. And if they're looking for you at work, because we know a lot of donations are made on desktops, right? And you could probably even look at time of day. Like if they're at work, they're probably feeling the pressure to get back to whatever it is that they're doing. Even if it's not work, even if it's home, their kids, there are other things that are going on, right? That's really important. Now, finally, last scenario, and then we're going to take the aha. We're going to get the key influencer. Last scenario. Imagine you have a donation page, and In order to get there, though, they've had to go through an ad that pulled them like off of Facebook. So this would be like a Facebook ad or like maybe a Google ad. And you've offered them like some kind of ebook, some kind of an offer, maybe a quiz or some kind of standalone, even some kind of an online course, right? And they were drawn in by that online course or that ebook. And then after that, they have a chance to donate, right? We'll call that an instant donation situation. What can we learn about that? Well, number one, just by looking at the situation, they have just received a free standalone offer that they will perceive to benefit themselves, and they want to consume it. They just got it. They just unlocked it. They're like, yes, I traded my information. I'm ready to get into it. And yet, at the same time, they're in a temporary state of emotional gratitude. It's as if you just received a compliment, or as if somebody you were at Starbucks, and all of a sudden, yeah, somebody just paid for your drink. Oh, like there's a feeling that comes with that, and we should recognize that situation. Even the setting, may be different. But what is the thing that we can learn from all three of these situations? Now we're at the point where we're getting what we need to get to the 21. Well, it's this. There are two tensions that are at war with each other, and they're different for every scenario or situation. In the general donation page, the one that they have to seek out, one intention is to accomplish the mission they have in mind, but the other one is to second guess themselves. Am I making the right choice? Is this the thing that I intended to donate to? Are they talking the same talk that I thought they were talking? There's always that desire to check themselves, right? And for a campaign donation page or coming from your email, maybe it's year end. Well, yeah, you pulled them away from something that they were doing, and a part of them really wants to act on that. They like you. You've caught them, but at the same time, they're feeling the pressure to return to the thing that they were already doing. Because you know what? I'm at work. Maybe I really shouldn't be. Like, there's something that's telling them don't, and there's another one that's saying do, right? And then finally, instant donation. Well, I just unlocked the ebook. Now I want to go read it, or now I want to go get that course. At the same time, they're feeling good. They're like, oh wow, thanks for free. Like, maybe they want to act on it. Like, they have that moment where there's this tension that exists. And here's the point. The single greatest factor of performance differentiation for donation pages is intention. Write that down. That's why it's blank. It's intention. Okay? And a donation page that takes intention into consideration is one that has a clear target. So what is it that makes understanding intention so powerful? How do we leverage it to make our donation page a true winner? Well, this is how. To inspire a visitor to make that donation, we need to increase the emotions and awareness to intentions connected to generosity. And if possible, reduce the emotions and awareness to those that are not. And think about it. In the general situation, their intention is to be generous. They're seeking you out. But there's that part of them that says, wait a minute. Are you sure? We have to overcome that. For the campaign situation, the intention is connected to their relationship and their desire to act on that, or the values that you represent. But then that part of them that says, no, get back to work, or right? And you can even see that in the instant donation situation, to act on the feeling of gratitude, or to just, okay, I'm going to go to the thing. In every case, we want to draw them to the place, to the intention, or closer. We want to elevate the intention that increases generosity, right? So that which leads me to the next question. Well, okay, if that's the single greatest influencer, how can I enable or amplify that to get the most possible revenue per visitor, right? Because that's what we're looking for from these pages. Especially Erin, we have to capitalize in this time, right? Well, this is the perfect time to talk about a campaign donation page, because that's what we're all working on. That's what we're all preparing for right now. Year-end's coming up. It's the biggest time, the most wonderful time of the year for us, right? How do we get the most out of it? Well, now I'm going to go to number 2 and number 3. I'm going to give you the 7 core strategies that affect that influencer, things that you can do to change it, right? And the 21 steps, or I'm going to call them research-driven or field-tested tactics that you can use right away and to try and get a gain. So here are the 7 core strategies. Let's just get right to it. And you can see that they're divided up into two sections, enablers and inhibitors. Now, what do I mean by enablers? Well, remember, we're trying to enable the intention of generosity and we're trying to prevent the inhibition of that, right? So we're looking at strategies that increase that intention and those that have a negative effect and increase the opposite side, right? Okay? It's like this. Imagine somebody's got that one nice, warm, wonderful cup of tea. They're in that moment, right? They're feeling good. We want to pour them more hot tea, right? We don't want to pour ice cold. This is not the ice cold water challenge, the ice bucket challenge, okay? This is not the ice bucket challenge. Because when that cold ice water hits them, they're like, wait a minute, I should be working. Wait a minute, that free thing that I just signed up for, it's waiting for me. Wait a minute, maybe I shouldn't be. That is that part of us that we can't avoid. You can see, I pulled that little T image, right? No, we want to keep them in that state where they're not thinking based out of survival. They're thinking based on sacrifice and generosity. So, let's go to the first one, increasing proposal clarity. Now, what do I mean by this strategy? Well, it's that moment, here's a great example, like, that face, right? Not that face, the Britney Spears, and we're all, our just childhoods from the 90s, but that confused face, like, right? We want to go from this to this. Oh, right? It's that moment where they get it, right? Well, that is a strategy that we need to take on our donation pages. Now, how in the world can we achieve that? Where does that matter most? Well, let's take a look. These are 5 areas where we can put that strategy into action, where we've already tested this, right? Let's take a look at the first one. That's the headline. We want to focus on the effect of the donation rather than the cause. What do I mean by that? The effect meaning the thing that happens, the thing that the donor enables, the magic, right, that occurs, not the fact that they're donating. Donate Today is focusing on the source. Here's an example. This is Caring Bridge, right? They have websites. You make Kelly's website possible. Okay, yep, that's the source. You make it happen. Your donation makes it happen. Whereas this one is this website helps Kate stay connected to family and friends. Oh, and you make that possible. The first focus is on what the donation produces. It helps keep that website. These are people that are going through like really, big life events like, sicknesses and, they're fighting diseases and they need to keep people like, so we need to help them understand the effect of the donation so that, we can stay focused on the thing that increases generosity.
Yeah, John, one other thing that's interesting about this experiment here, in the optimized version, it explains why that website is so important. The website's important because it helps Kate stay connected to family and friends. And of course, if she's on a recovery journey, which is what these websites are all about, that helps me understand the actual ultimate impact of the gift, right? I mean, it's very clear as opposed to me having to guess why the website's important.
Right. It's like, oh, moment. And it hits them right away in the headline. That's going to increase that generosity. It's going to keep them close. 21% increase in this situation. Let's take a look at another one, the body message. One opportunity that we've had, again, to increase that aha moment is to take that same concept and put it in the body copy. So let's take a look. On the left, it's difficult to read, and you're not going to have time to read it all right now. But it talks about the organization, for this particular group. This organization, our mission is to, and this is, you ensure that the organization does this, this, and this. Whereas on the right, thanks to you, your financial support helps sustain. And now your year-end gift, you can help, right? There's just a little bit of a tighter connection between what it is that you are actually enabling, as opposed to again, it takes that step of translation away. It makes it more instant. That's what we talk about, proposal clarity. In this case, it was a 23% increase in donations. Tim, I think this was your test, actually. So let's move forward. Background image. Even the image itself could actually make a difference. Let's take a look. If you actually use a background image, here we're talking a little bit about Caring Bridge again. Instead of this generic, like, oh, heart, it's just cute, cool, interesting image. They decided to choose an image intentionally based on the effect or the kind of, thing that they're trying to produce. Like, it's actually, this is related to their cause. This is what they're doing. They're connecting people. So they're like, what kind of image could help do that? Well, in this case, it was this image, and it resulted in 20% more donations. It's amazing. Even the image can have an impact. The point is you need to make sure that it helps them, in that instantaneous way, right? Next, even the inline premiums, like if you're doing an inline premium, don't forget to add an image. That just makes it clear. So here on the left, literally, this is like the same copy. It really is. It's just stretched a little bit differently, because all we really did here is add this little extra image so people could, understand, right? For our gift down here, now that that's a little bit closer here, and now we've got the image, the result of that was, an increase in average gift, right? Because that's what we're trying to do with those anyway, right? We're trying to increase the revenue and the average gift. So in this case, don't forget, use that image to make sure that they understand what it is they're getting with those premiums. And then finally, form fields. Even the headers, there's an opportunity to increase clarity. Make your donation, choose your donation amount. Write a message of support, which is the same, but also here, enter your information, it's secure. Let's just be incredibly clear, okay, about what it is that we need them to do, right? In this case, it was a 12.5% increase in donations. So as you can see, increasing proposal clarity is a great strategy that you can use, and you're not limited to just those 5. There's so much more that you could probably do, but now you understand why those 5 work. Let's talk about the next one. This is my favorite, to be honest. This is the best one of them all, in my opinion. But it's not necessarily the most important, but it's my favorite. Increasing medium engagement intensity. John, what do you mean by that? What do you mean by that? Well, the best way I can explain it is with this illustration. For lack of a better illustration, imagine a guy who really likes a girl, and there's some mutual interest, right? There's really some mutual interest, and so he's like, they're trying to get to know each other. He really wants to have a chance, right? So what does he do? He's really smart. He's like, well, why don't we go out and have some dinner, right? And so that dinner kind of brings them close, right? It brings them close together, right? You're literally sitting across the table, but did you know that at the dinner table you could even be closer without moving closer to each other? Well, how do you do that? Well, let's share a couple glasses of wine with each other. We both enjoy wine, and but a little bit of music, right? And it helps increase the mood. What these things do is they act as a way to bring you guys closer and tighter together. And the way it works here is that your message is here and your donor is there. And there are things that you can do that even like at a dinner table to increase, the experience, to draw them closer together. The point is that you want your message and your donor to be so close to each other that it's like drawing them, like like those old cartoons where the smell of the bread is like it's pulling them in. That is what you're trying to produce here. You're trying to really get them 100% engaged. So how do we do that? Here's some tactics. Okay, we're at number 6 now. Inline graphics. Okay, this is a great illustration of this. So you've got bullets on the left here, and we're like, oh, that's so easy to read, easy to skim by. That's the problem. You don't want easy to read and easy to skim by on a campaign page. You want them tight. You want them hanging off of your every word. Well, you want to translate fast enough. In this case, this didn't look like a banner ad per se, because people like to skip banner ads, but it was just a very simple, like infographic style to help them see the information, not miss it, and to more quickly engage with it. People, they say, I've never been able to verify where this came from, but everybody uses it. People process images 60,000 times faster than text. So in this case, Kevin took this piece of advice and put it to the test, and the result was a significant increase in donations. So another idea for you, think about what you're saying, and is it, are they missing it? How can you bring them tighter to the message so that you don't lose them? Now here's another tactic, and this is a surefire tactic you definitely want to use in your campaigns, okay, and this is story. Now here's the thing, what we know about story is this. Story is one of the most effective ways to get information to inside human brains, because people process story. They are built. It's human nature. Okay. So here's what happens. On the left you've got the same information. It's very well organized. Bullets. You know what I mean? It's like resume. Like it's super easy to skim. But you know what? Remember, what force is pulling them to go away? It's work. I got to go back to work. Easy to skim, you're not as tight to the message, okay? In the story, you don't even realize that you're reading. You don't even realize that you're taking time away from, you don't realize you are hooked to the message. You understand the importance of the message. Like, there is no easy way away from it, right? You're drawn in. The result here was 18.4% more. But that's all that we did here, is we took that same information, but we put it in a narrative format so somebody can get tighter to the message. Like it's like they're imagining it in their mind, whereas with bullets, it's just so easy to scan that, I mean, how could you take the time to read it? You're telling them don't take the time to read it, just skip past it. No, we want them to read it. We want them to engage to it, especially in campaign pages, because of that opposite effect. Another thing, text. We just got to make sure it's readable. You know what I mean? You know, you can make some design changes, and you know, it doesn't seem like there's a big difference on the left and the right. It is the same text, but even that contrast in the formatting, the spacing, can have a significant effect. You can see the difference. You can feel the difference. Significant difference here. This is one of those tests I don't want to believe, but I have to look at the data, you know, and I see other tests similar to this, where it's like you're like, no, something had to have changed, right? Just the ability to kind of go into it, right? Same thing. And finally, video. You know, we've been finding that video has just not been great for donation pages, not just campaign pages, but other ones. But the big question has been why? Well, this gives you an understanding of why, okay? In this example, this is a year-end kind of example, right? You know, asking for a gift, but they said, here's a message from the president. And it gives the message in a video, and they're thinking, yeah, this is gonna increase their engagement. They're gonna feel emotions. Well, but there's a problem. You know, what if the images that you are putting in their head are not as good as the ones that they can put in their heads, their own heads, right? You know, so on the right, they literally have to read through it, but not only could they process it faster, but they can put the images of what you're saying into their own head. They become the director. They are not subject to your ideas. And so if you've ever heard of anybody that hated the movie version of the book, this is why. Okay, it's because their version of the movie in their head was far better than the version that the director chose on the screen. And in the same way, the more that we put things into people's heads, again, and misalign or increase the distance between them and the message, the less likely we're able to convert. In this case, it was significant, very, 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 very significant.
Yeah, John, this is interesting. I know we've run several different experiments where we have tested, you know, video versus the same video in text format, and I'm sorry, just the whatever was in the video in text format, and we continue to see the same kind of result. And I think what we're finding out is that, you know, there's a difference in how people actually process text than how they process video. And I've heard one person explain it saying, look, well, I get it because I can read text faster than your video will play, right? So I feel like I have more power in the situation. In some ways, in that respect, you know, text is more empathetic because to your point, it puts the reader in the director's seat as opposed to leaving all that in interpretation of somebody else. So I think this is something we have to continue to experiment with. And I don't think that we say that there's no value for video, but on a donation page, it's probably something that we need to be a little bit careful about, right?
Right. For that reason, especially a campaign page, because in a campaign page, we're drawing them away from something. We need them to be as close to the message as possible. When they're inventing the images, they're also biased towards their own images, and they're biased. You know, as long as we can help create that picture in their mind, then they're going to want to act on that. They may or may not want to act on the image that we give them. So again, my favorite, but it's not as important as some of these other ones. So let's continue. We're talking about enablers here. Increase urgency to act. This may seem like an obvious one, but it is important. For example, a countdown clock. Now, I'm not talking about a contextual clock where it's like every 20 seconds, you know, a child goes hungry. But I'm talking about a time to deadline clock. The clock is ticking. Just adding a countdown clock, and this isn't even rendered great. I mean, look at that. Like, it's just a box Like but the result was significant, right? When there's little time left, you're just reminding them, again, they're being pulled away. You're reminding them, listen, don't put this off. The time to act is now, right? It's very, very easy. And you know, the countdown clock, I'm sure, is not the only tactic that you could do, but it's one that we know to work very often. So we want you to test it. Now let's talk about effective social influence. This is another strategy, and to, again, pour that hot tea. Keep them, you know, connected to that intention of generosity. What do I mean by social influence? Well, let me give you this. It can be best explained with this first example, the progress meter. You've all heard of it. You've all seen it in some form or another, right? What this is it's like a bandwagon effect. Like if you introduce a project progress meter and it's like 3/4 of the way, like they feel like they could very much be a tangible part of bringing that goal. You know, it's like, and they also see how many other people have joined in the cause, and that, my friends, has an effect on human behavior. The term the psychologists use for it is social proof. How many people have signed up for this course? How many people have done this? Like, oh, if they're doing it, then I should do it. That has an effect. In this case, it raised revenue per visitor by about 20.5%. We have a lot of different tests that we can give you references for, different situations where you can see this work, in some cases where, you know, the effect was more or less neutral. But this is something you should consider. Now, the next one comes with a caveat, recent gift callouts. This is the same principle, right? We're showing people that other people are donating, right? It's kind of like, oh, this other person just donated. I should donate too. The only challenge is we have to be very careful about the amounts that we show. Why? Because in this case, the amounts that were generally being shown were below the average they were hitting for or they were competing against. And the result was, even though it was more donations, it was significantly less average gift, which in the end was less revenue. So when we think about using recent donor callouts, I'm not saying don't use it. What I am saying is use them effectively. You know, if people's typical donations are a lot low, you know what I mean? Like, or you could, you know, maybe there's I don't know, correct me if I'm wrong, maybe there's a way to show a donation that's above a certain average and to compile those and just, you know, as those come in, they can come up in a little slide up on the bottom. But the point is that social proof, social influence does have an effect, and I want you as an audience to explore that and let me know what you're finding, and this should get you started. Now let's talk about inhibitors, right? We talked about things, we're pouring the hot tea, we're keeping them in the zone. What are some things that pull really ice cold water and oh wait, I should go back to work. Oh wait, you know what, I don't know about, maybe I shouldn't do this, right? The first one I'm going to call unmet relational expectations. Remember, we're sending them an email, we have a relationship with them, right? So what are some things that we can do to jeopardize that relationship or show a lack of confidence in that relationship? Because people do react to that, you know? First one, I would say, is your introduction copy. If you have an email and you're talking about, if there's a specific issue that you're using to draw them in to the landing page or to the donation page, right? Best thing is to continue along that topic. That's what drew them in the first place. Or don't just brush over it. In this scenario, literally it was just adding some text throughout. Okay, just adding a little bit of text. If you really stare at it, you'll see that this part and this part's the same. But what they did is they said, you know, from the email, they're really focused on this resource, right? So like, let's talk a little bit more about the resource. Let's just spend more attention on it, because that was what drew them in, right? Result was a significant increase in donations. We're just acknowledging we drew them in. We shouldn't leave that part. Otherwise, people are like bait and switch. So they need to feel like we're continuing the conversation. That has to do with your relationship and how you're handling it, right? Same thing. If you just had a conversation with a friend and you talk again and they completely ignore the thing that you just talked about, and there's something more, like, there's a problem. You know, they're going to feel weird. Another example, the gift array. Now, I heed a word of caution here, okay? This is something that you should test, and I want more data on this, because we did a whole meta-analysis on gift arrays, but this is one area where you could potentially be getting more by not telling them what they should be giving. Okay, let's take a look. You've got your options here, and look, there's even a challenge grant, right? There's a deadline, okay? In this case, we said, nope, we're going to let them decide. we're going to get out of their way, okay, because we trust them. We have a relationship with them. As long as they understand the message, which is all above it, right? The result here was a significant and not a decrease in average, gifts. So there was no like, oh, we got more donations but less money. No. In this case, it was more. Now, here's the caveat. If you have a typical average gift that is less than, like the standard benchmark or maybe less than other channels, I would wait to test that until you try some of these other things. But if you do have a higher than typical average gift in this time or whatnot, I would encourage you to run a test and to see if this is an area where you can just demonstrate more trust in that relationship. Because what we find is that these gift arrays actually work really well in a situation where they don't know you and they need some guidance and direction on how to give. Just like if you're in a foreign country, right? How much do I tip? I don't know, but what if they told me? Then I feel like they're serving me. But if I'm like, down the street and they automatically add that 18% because they don't trust me, well, I mean, that produces a bad taste. Same thing. Finally, gift type. If you're going to heavily emphasize a recurring gift on your page, just prime them. Because what I'm finding is that the expectation appears to be like I'm coming to make a single gift. So what happens is sometimes if you're not careful, you can actually turn somebody off. Let me show you an interesting example. This isn't what I would call the cleanest test in the world, but you can see by the design of the test what they were trying to do. Okay? On the left, normally what I've seen in a gift array analysis is that when you add lower amounts, you increase giving. Okay? Because you're giving people more permission to give, especially at lower amounts. But look at the caveat here. It's automatically selected for monthly. So what they're trying to do is saying, okay, if they do 5 times 12, 12 times 4, 36, 48, 6, I'm going to get a minimum of $60. I'm going to keep this option down here, but I'm really emphasizing, right? Okay? So it's kind of like even the lowest amount is still more than the initial amount here. So you can see what we were kind of trying to do, but even when we tried to do that and we emphasized that gift, the gift or, the non-recurring emphasis got more donations and more an average gift, even calculating the whole monthly impact to 12 a year scenario.
Yeah, John, I actually remember this test. It was kind of interesting. So on the left, we have pre-selected the reoccurring option with lower gift amounts, and on the right, we have pre-selected the one-time option with higher gift amounts. And what we found from this test, not only did we see the increase in giving and higher average gift, but we also had a higher number of reoccurring gifts with the version on the right, which seems strange, right? Because it's pre-selected on the other side. And what I think I could take away from this is, again, it's about giving your donor power. When people feel like they're being manipulated or being pushed into a certain decision that really is not their own, they have a tendency to kind of push back against that. So I think by having, by default pre-selected one time and allowing people to make that mental decision, we were able to, achieve more recurring gifts. But it's something we have to continue to test. And I know that recurring gift is something that is a big priority for you next year in terms of our global design of experiments, and we're going to be continuing to research that. But yeah, it's really interesting, and honestly, I'd be very eager to hear from other folks that have done some interesting stuff with recurring giving testing.
Yeah, and that's it, right? It has to do with relationship. It really has to do with the relationship. That's why it's in this section, right? So again, don't be limited by these 3 tactics. Let them get you started, right? So you understand what we're doing. Last 2, and then we're going to get to your questions. First, unnecessary flow interruptions. This is just an inhibitor. Ice cold water, right? Wake them up. What? Okay, that kind of thing. Header, okay? Navigation, donation buttons. I know in some cases you can avoid it, like in a general donation page, right? Because it's living on the site, right? You can just hide it. But in a campaign donation page, you do have the power to control some of these things. Let's take a look at the first one, okay? In this case, this was actually, I've cut off the headline here so I can help you understand and see that it's gone. This is a campaign page, right? And it actually has a countdown clock and all of that. The result, though, of taking that donate button, you're thinking, okay, we're going to skip them down, we're going to make it easier. But what happens when you do that? They get away from the message. Like, remember how that, that whole bread, and you use story. You really help them forget that they're at work, right? And they're focused on their values. They're focused on the way that they can be generous and do that thing that they're supposed to do that makes a difference in their lives. But then when you make them skip all of that, it's like, well, wait a minute. All that stuff that you would have used to give them momentum is gone. So by taking it away, in this case, significant difference. In all cases, you're not going to see it as big as this, but we do find that this is something that you got to watch for. So this may be an area for you to test. If you already have a donation button, we would encourage you to test to not have it. See what happens.
Yeah, just to caveat that, this is a campaign landing page, right?
Yes.
So the idea with this donate button is that people skipped over all the content and it took them directly to the form, which was at the very bottom of the page. But we wouldn't suggest taking the donate button off of their main, homepage of their website. Right?
That's how they get there.
Right. But this is just, again, to your point about, if people don't actually interpret the value proposition by either reading or scanning through the copy, they're less motivated to make that final transaction, which is we continue to see over and over again.
Right. So there you have it. Great test. Something that you could use tomorrow, or you can start implementing for this year end. Next, let's talk about alternate payment methods. I'm talking about PayPal, Apple Pay, things like that. My word of advice here is that if you're going to add these, just make sure that you do it cautiously, especially if you cannot control the path. So this example, the funny thing about this is that, all the rest of the credit card stuff is still normal in this one. But all we did here is we gave them the option. And there was obviously a significant number of people that wanted to take that option, but the result of that was a big decrease in donations. And I don't know about you, but every time, checking out on PayPal is kind of hard. You got to log in, you got to do this, you got to do that. Oh, guys, is that the right bank account? Is it the right credit card? Like, you are not in control. And that is an opportunity for them to get disconnected, okay? Now, we did an Apple Pay test, and it was no difference. So it was okay. I mean, maybe, but that was just one test. I'm sure we can certainly do some more there. But my point to you is it's not like don't do it. It's be very careful. Don't just implement it and leave it alone. Say, yeah, look, we just added more payment methods. You could actually hurt them if you're not in control of it, and you lose them because the screen blinked, because now that they forgot all of a sudden about the reason why they're there, etc. You'll see some more examples of that. Verification pages. Just want to make sure that you know the amount that you're donating and all of that. Unfortunately, well, those are just unnecessary interruptions. In this case, just taking them straight to a thank you page resulted in an increase in donations. So remember that part of them that needs to get back to what they were doing. And even in a general campaign donation page situation, this isn't even limited. This is not limited to campaign pages, guys. Even in a general situation, like what is the warring intention? To second guess themselves. This is a perfect opportunity to second guess themselves. Just hit the button. Just hit the button, right? Well, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, not only that, but real quick, going back to that one, if you look at this page and kind of give it the squint test, it almost looks like this is your confirmation page, right? Like It looks like I've already submitted my gift, and if they're used to a donation experience that leaves this part out, they could be like, oh, I guess I'm done. X, red X, I'm out of there, right? And they've abandoned the process. So it's really interesting, like adding the step where you're trying to make sure that they don't make a mistake, you may end up actually losing some gifts. So
there you have it. Unnecessary flow interruption. Last and not least, certainly, forgotten impact and safety reassurance. There are natural points when somebody is going to feel a little worry or feel a little doubt. I mean, it's going to happen. It's natural. Like, there's nothing you can do to just completely prevent that from happening. But what you can do is address it as it would typically come up. So here are three. Here we're seeing now we're down to the last three. We're all the way to 21. 19, call to action, transition copy. When you guys think of call to action, you guys think of button. When I think of call to action, I think of the beginning of the transition from I'm learning about the opportunity and now it's time for me to act on it. And that happens right where you see number 19. Okay, so let's talk about that. In this case, all we did is we just reiterated the impact. You know what I mean? So your donation will advance your, so it's kind of like, I want to make my donation now. I want to donate. I want to help advance the principles of free enterprise, limited, et cetera, individual freedom, et cetera, right? Just by including that, that was 49%. Significant. We should not take that for granted. We should always make sure we remind them, okay, to help them transition into that action. We need to help them understand what it is, again, that their impact is for doing that. Payment fields, always make them feel secure, right? This is a natural thing that's going to happen. What you're doing is as they get there, you're kind of removing all doubt immediately. So I know you guys, you're not going to send them to a page that's not secure, but they don't know that. You got to tell them. Even something as simple as a lock in a, guy, this is ridiculous, guys. This is ridiculous. 9% more just by adding a lock icon in a shaded background. You know, all we're doing is we're just telling them that it's secure, and it is. It's not a lie. It wasn't not secure on the left. But the point is they need to be reminded, and this is just a form of reminder. So there may be more interesting ways to pull this off. Okay, and it may not always work, but in some cases, there it is. Last but not least, your call to action area. This is the best part. Remember how we used impact reminders to get them to start it? Well, we need to make sure and use it at the end too. That's all we changed here. At the very end, we just reminded them of something we already told them. You know what that tells me? That tells me that that is a natural hesitation point, and we should be prepared for it. Listen, it doesn't cost you anything to put in a little bit of extra text that you've already written down below, just to remind them, hey, this is where it's going, right? Yep, it's all good. We're all good. Now, finally, how is this campaign page different from a general page on your website? Let me just give you 4 quick overarching differences. Okay, remember these 2 warring, you know, we know that the intentions are different, right? On a general domain page, they're actually coming in ready to be generous. On the other one, they're being drawn in. They're being taken away from something. So, on the left is your general, on the right is your campaign. Point 1, headline. Instead of being too specific, I want you to be general. Why? They already have something in mind. If you get too specific, you are going to isolate somebody and stop them, and they will second guess themselves. But you can't put anything, nothing either. I've seen so many tests where having something over nothing produces significant gain. So you can't do that either. You still have to have value there. But I want you to focus on what we call the primary value proposition, which is broader, greater, more all-encompassing. Next, your introduction copy, again, don't align it so close to one group. You want it to, again, follow up on what we just said. It cannot isolate any major prospect group. On your body copy, instead of using narrative, because remember, narrative is like getting them really tight with the message. If we're not too careful, getting them too tight with any particular part of the message, I've seen can sometimes have the opposite effect. In some cases, it just doesn't have any effect. But it's just not necessary to write all that additional copy, and a lot of times in these pages. This is where your easy to scan bullets actually do help you, because it's like, yep, I'm in the right place, yep, I'm in the right place, yep, I'm aligned, I'm aligned, I'm aligned. They don't necessarily need all that story. Finally, the obvious one is intensifiers. On the general donation page, you know, progress bars, countdown clocks, things like that aren't going to feel organic, except at year end, when it's a genuine, you know, donate before the year end. Like, you can put that, yeah, come on. But anywhere else, like anything else, I'd be very wary. And just even look at the 2 pages side by side. I mean, you really don't need as much copy on here, I'm finding, in all the tests that we're seeing. That's not an end-all be-all, but what it is telling me is that, again, when people come in with something in mind, they have an ingoing motivation. We don't want to say, wait, no, you should question yourself. It's no, yeah, you're in the right place. It's kind of like I go into Best Buy, take me to the cameras. They're like, just show me where they are. Don't try and no, just show me where the cameras are. Right. Same thing. How about the instant donation page, right? We talked about that third one. Well, seeing that, you know, we've got 10 minutes left and we want to make sure we cover all your questions, I'm going to direct you to go to our wonderful courses.nextafter.com section. Don't worry, it's free. There's no charge. I mean, literally, it's free. We've got an entire course, and in that course on turning Facebook likes into donors, I mean, we'll be adding a course on campaign emails and donation pages. I've got an aggressive target for that coming up in a couple months, maybe less than that. But until then, we've got a whole section that walks through an instant donation page. You've got, Tim will give you the intro and the principles, and then from there, we'll actually literally walk from top to bottom. You're going to see some recurring themes here that are constant on all the pages, but then you're going to see some very specific things. And even look at that little donation page template. You see that little thing right down there? You can download it. You can print that out, put it on there. Yeah, you've got all of that. So again, we want to make sure we have time for your questions. So let me wrap up with a quick review. I just gave you what I perceive these to be the latest. I mean, this is the very latest and best. We're going through all of our pages and making sure we're not missing any opportunities here to get the greatest response, right? And there are 3 things that you can do in order to get there. You have to understand intention, right? We're going to talk about that in a second. The 7 core strategies and 21 things to get you started. Here is the review, right? Intention, intention, intention. Intention is the key. You have to understand the 2 warring intentions that are going on. For lack of a better illustration, angel and devil, okay? Angel generous, devil not generous, okay? And you have to know how to use that tension and increase it towards the side that errs to generosity, okay? Here are the 7 principles that I really want you to focus on, okay? Make it really tight. I'm saying, get that moment. Get them really close to the message, the bread and all of that. Urgency to act. I know, little sound effects here. Social influence, unmet relational expert. Don't ruin your treat them as if you have a good relationship, okay? Unless it's really shallow relationship and they're really not giving that much. Flow interruptions, forgotten impact and safety reassurance. These are the keys. And now 21 things that we talked about, those are just ways to get you started. I want there to be like 30. You know what I mean? But I can't do that without your help and without a little bit more research. With that, you can download that campaign donation page with all of the 21 things that we talked about right here. Just go there, give your information, just confirm with us, and we'll send it your way. You can print this out, post this. And you know what you're going to see here? These are all the different experiment references. So if you ever get curious, you want to go to our library and you want to see, okay, what is he talking about? What's a specific example? You can use that. Okay. Finally, thank you. We appreciate your time. What are your questions?
Well, John, as usual, it's always entertaining to see you present it. Where does the whole thing? Are you talking about like Bugs Bunny, where he like?
I grew up on those cartoons.
Okay. All right, so we have a few questions here that I want to try to spend some time addressing. The first one: is there value embedding a video in an email? Have you seen? I know you're just starting to dig into some of the email tests, and actually, I might have some thoughts on that, but is there value of embedding a video in an email?
I would be very careful about that for the same reason that we talked about. Remember, you're interrupting somebody, especially at work. They're going to open up their email, and what if they're sound? What if there's now they got to plug in their headphones, they got to do all of that. Honestly, this is something that I'm looking into in a little more detail. Actually, in the next couple of weeks, we've got a webinar and email coming up. But I would caution against it initially for this very same reason that we don't use it there. Because, I mean, you gotta take them away. They have to be able to get your message right away.
Yeah, and I think that the key there is context and purpose of the email. So I know that there's been a few experiments we've done where, by embedding a video, we get higher click-through rates. But if it's taking people to a donation page that has the embedded video, we see the same results that you showed in that case study, where we see a decrease in donation conversion, right? So, it really depends. Like if you're sending people just to watch a video, yeah, it could be a good strategy. But again, you just have to be careful with it when it comes to the donation pages. Okay, next question. Once the goal's been met and you're showing the progress bar, do you change it to get a higher amount? This is actually interesting. I know that we've one of the things that we've coached some of our research partners on is this idea of planning for success. And so what happens if we are still 3-4 days out from the deadline and we've already achieved the campaign goal? And so what we always would recommend is having a secondary and even in some cases a tertiary goal, and actually having a few emails that are ready to go in case we actually approach that goal early. And so what we typically will do is we'll cross out the existing goal, and we'll have the new goal kind of written above it, and we encourage our audience to say, out of the abundance generation of our generation, out of the abundance generosity of our donors, we've extended our goal, and we're just going to see how high it gets, because the more we can raise, the more impact we can make. So it's kind of an interesting one. All right. Okay, here's a neat one about benchmarks. So I don't know if we've dug into this or not, John. What is the average benchmark gift for year end?
Yeah, I know we've got a data set that we use for average gift in general. I think is it 8 or no?
Well, yeah, it depends. I saw a recent one published, I think, by Blackbaud, and I think it put it right at 107 for an online gift was the average online gift amount. At year end, typically we see a little bit higher average gifts, but the key here is that it really fluctuates wildly from organization to organization and from cause to cause. For sure. Some groups, it's not uncommon to see very, very high average gifts in the $400 or $500 range, but that's usually means they have a smaller donor base and they're getting a lot more major gifts that are coming in through the online channel. So fortunately, I don't have a clear benchmark there. What's the best language or wording to use on a donate button or a call to action link? Any advice on that, John?
Just a donate button. Just don't use the word submit. Don't just be very clear. I think the clearer that you can be, just think about it psychologically though. Let's just go back to the core strategies, right? When it comes to the button, they've already decided what they want to give. They already feel like they're ready. You just need to confirm what they already have confirmed themselves, right? The amount, right? The fact that they're going to give it right away, and then underneath that, you're going to have your text. So just keep the button simple. Keep it, positive, like make my X dollar gift now. Just what you want to do is eliminate any. You don't want to introduce any uncertainty or any kind of negative feeling. That's what I would recommend there. There really isn't a whole lot to the buttons. It's just around the button really is what you got to worry about.
More hot tea. Right?
Yes, more hot tea, guys. Sugar too. Don't forget the sugar.
Here it is. This question always pops up. Do we have a preference? Single donation pages or multi-step donation pages?
Single donation pages are multi-step. We have, for some organizations, we actually do have a multi-step. It was interesting. Is like we used a multi. I think I remember an experiment where we tried to ask for a gift for 2 different organizations, one of our sister organizations, and we tried to ask for both of them on the same page, and that really it wasn't effective. And then what we decided to do is we had an add-on page right after. And that actually had a significant increase in people giving. They gave one there, they're feeling good, and they're like, hey, did you know about our sister organization, right? And even when we've, collected a one-time gift and then tried to get a recurring donation gift after that, do you want to become a recurring donor? Just offering an additional single one-time gift after that significantly outperformed that. So I mean, if you're dealing with a situation where you got sister organizations, or there's a special opportunity to collect money for multiple things or whatnot. I mean, trying to combine them into one, it's going to slow them down. They're going to like, which one do I donate to? If I only had to choose one, but instead you want to sequence those. Is what I typically would recommend based on what I'm seeing so far. Tim, I don't know if you want to add any color to that.
Yeah. I'm just trying to recall a test where we've done a head-to-head test of having multi-step donation page versus single-step donation page. I know we probably have tested that years ago. I just can't recall the exact test number, but I know that the difference was significant enough that we've really taken the preference to the single-step donation page, and mainly for the reason that we saw in some of those case studies that you presented, where when you add like a second step and it's a confirmation page, it could be confusing, and many people may have think that they've completed their gift the first time they've clicked the button, right? And a lot of people have trained their donors that don't click that button more than once, or we're going to charge you more than once. So I would recommend starting with a single donation page to start with. That's what we typically do. And if you want to test out of that, then I think that would be really interesting, and I'd love to see the results. Okay, next question here. Do we have any tests on a donation form embedded on the page versus a pop-up that opens in a new window or a new tab?
So let's visualize this for a minute.
Yeah.
So
Yes.
So when you say donation page and donation form embedded into a page, is it like a sidebar or something like that, or
yeah, just where the actual transaction mechanism is on the same page that inspires the gifts, right? Where you don't have to click a donate button that takes you to a whole other page to complete the transaction.
Oh yeah, the closest thing I can think of is those alternate payment methods where it's like, right? I mean, think about it. I mean, okay, you've got the inspiration on the page. You click, donate via PayPal. What happens? They go to something happens. Something happened. We saw that in Greece. Have we really explicitly tested this in and out? I can't remember a ton of those, but what that goes back to the point that we mentioned, which is, when you start to separate, that time to give from the message that inspired, what happens is they start losing, they forget, even when the screen blinks, you know what I mean? It's like, start over. So, if you ask me, John, what would you do today? I would embed it, have it on the same page, and really control that path so that value, the reason they brought them there, especially in a campaign situation, it does not dissipate too fast. It does not dilute.
Right.
Because every moment that you're not talking about value, it's like that energy bar is going down, 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 and down until it gets empty, and then they leave. So, if you go to a whole new page, so far what I'm seeing, unless you recover that energy bar and shoot it back up again.
Right. Yeah, as a general rule, once you've triggered the donation intention, the more steps you put between the donor and completing that transaction, the more friction you add to the process. And friction, to your point, slows people down. It drains their energy bar, or it causes them to do the unthinkable. They hit the red X or the green arrow, and they're out of your page altogether.
Right.
So our general preference is embedded donation forms at almost in every circumstance, and it's something we've tested out of the click away years ago, and I could probably go reference some old case studies that would actually make that point. Great question, whoever asked that. Is an annual appeal a general donation page, or is it a campaign? So an annual appeal, I guess.
Year-end, is that, or it's like a fiscal year-end, or?
It could be, yeah. Let's answer it a couple different ways. So let's pretend it's a fiscal year-end annual appeal. Would that be more like a general donation page or campaign?
I would say campaign page, based on what I'm seeing. Yeah, it's a special thing. It's a special thing. People aren't looking to donate to a specific, if they're going to look to donate, they have something else in mind. And then if you send them to, if they run across that page, you might actually stop them. It needs to be separate. It has to be its own campaign page. So it's campaign page.
Yeah, I agree. Annual appeal, any other type of thing that has the word appeal attached to it, I would generally categorize that as a campaign landing page, not a general donation page. Whenever I can control the pathway that leads somebody to the donation opportunity, I'm generally going to want to create a standalone specific campaign page that picks up from wherever that person's coming from, continues that warm cup of tea pouring all over them.
Respects the relationship, all of that. Yeah, exactly. You're right.
And moving them to completing the gifts. I think we have maybe one more question, or time for one or two more questions here. Actually, we're actually over time, so maybe we should wrap. Yeah, actually, we are about 4 minutes over time, so I apologize. We do have another webinar coming up on December 6th, where we will be doing a little bit different format. This is where we kind of do some live optimization. So what we want from you is for you to send us your campaign donation pages, ideally, or campaign emails. We want both, Nathan? Okay, he's saying both. So send us your campaign, your year-end fundraising campaign emails, your year-end fundraising donation pages, and we will spend some time on the call doing some live optimization, giving you as many ideas as we possibly can of things that you could test or use to optimize the performance of your campaign. You can send all of your email appeals or links to your donation pages to me, timk@nextafter.com. Again, timk@nextafter.com, and I'll call through those, and we will try to cover as many as we can on December 6th. I think, John, you'll be joining me for that, and we'll probably have a few other members of our team. Nathan's nodding yes. Nathan just got back from a world tour, folks. He he was touring with the Waves, so he's, we're happy to have him back. Don't you ever leave me again. Okay, he's giggling, so I know that we're good. All right, guys, thank you so much for attending the webinar today. We always enjoy sharing some of the things that we're learning with you, and we're very, very grateful that you make time out of your busy schedules, especially at year end, to be able to tune in. Look forward to seeing you December 6th. Send us those pages, and we will see you soon. Bye-bye.